Hey everybody, it's Matt Wallace bringing you AI every day. Exciting to be back today, and obviously it's been a long gap since I have managed to produce AI Everyday podcasts. I hope everybody enjoyed the Future Rodeo. Most recently, I had David Linthicum, who is a cloud computing pioneer on. But I'm excited to be back. There, obviously, the AI world hasn't kept still while I've been working on this. But today, I wanted to talk to you about a really cool paper that came out of Salesforce that really stands to just completely change the usability of diffusion models. So we're talking about things like stable diffusion or Playground AI, which I've played around with their pre-trained model. The Salesforce team, what an amazing research team Salesforce has. They're not super well known as some of the other AI shops, the OpenAIs and Googles of the world, but they produce a lot of really cool research that actually has a lot of practical uses to it. And they've released a paper around a technique they call BootPIG, bootstrapping zero-shot personalized image generation capabilities in pre-trained diffusion models. And that's a mouthful, but I'm going to put up a little screenshot basically here that'll give you a feel for what this is like. And what you can see in the screenshot is that, typically speaking, if you are using text-to-image prompting or even image and text prompting, you get a fuzzy version. And I've actually experimented with this, for example, in Midjourney, using image prompts along with text prompts, right? Feeding images of myself, say, and trying to remap a photo into an environment. And I find it's an incredibly mixed bag. If you generate 100 images, you might be able to get a few that are close enough that they work for you, but it can't zero shot that kind of morphing over of a subject unless the subject is something it knows really well to begin with, which it definitely can't for people. And in this screenshot that I'm putting up, you can see here that there's a bunch of samples that they have where they are prompting with the subject on the far left, right? The toy all the way down to the can. And I think the can is the one that we should hone in on. In the can, you can see they've supplied a set of shots here of this can, and they say a can in the snow. And these other techniques, the blip diffusion, the elite, etc., they generate cans in the snow, and they're vaguely similar to the original can. One does have what looks like a whale. They're both blue. But then the two cans on the right both look effectively almost real. They have the same whale on the front. They have the same flourish of yellow that you can see in the original can. And the difference here is that DreamBooth, if you don't know, is something that involves actually training against the subject. You feed it a bunch of reference photos and you give it some time, the diffusion model, some time to have some passes that create a fine tuning of the original model that you can then use. BootPIG here instead takes the technique of basically using a pre-training technique where they have 200,000 reference photos and they essentially split the reference to some object and it's the other related things in the image. And it takes the diffusion model and it makes it good at being able to put the subject into a new context without having to have any fine-tuning done at the time of generation. So I think that's incredibly cool because this opens up the possibility of essentially having one model that understands how to take a reference photo and then generate additional things just like any other diffusion model is capable of generating images, but do it in the context that keeps the original subject intact but separates it. I feel like I've been waiting for this, and actually in one of the much earlier AI Everydays, I talked about Facebook's segment anything model. Last week, we actually saw an update come out in research to that paper that was more like almost like some micro segment anything, right? Not just this is a keyboard, but you're able to control the granularity where, yes, the whole thing is a keyboard, but it's able to pick out every individual key as well. So that like micro segmentation is going to be useful in things like robotics, but it's also going to be really useful in circumstances like this. So I think what we're seeing here is all these advances playing off one another. And I haven't dug into whether the BootPIG paper really dovetailed off of the research from Segment anything in particular, but suffice it to say, it really unlocks a lot of possibilities for customizing things, which could be really good, both for commercial purposes, right? If you want to have some kind of mascot or brand and then just be able to dynamically generate any kind of content you want, this is going to make it a lot easier to do that without the training. And then from a consumer perspective, just being able to generate the really realistic images with any particular subject on the fly is pretty cool. Catch me the next episode. I'm going to be talking about high performance LLM generation with VLLM, which I've been experimenting with, and I'll see you soon.